Hello, I'm Monique from Japanese Reads, and in tonight's Express PD, I wanted to quickly go through a sample 30-minute lesson. And in this 30 minutes, I wanted to showcase how, even with a small amount of time, which so many language teachers have to grapple with, you can maximize the input that you are giving the students in that 30 minutes by tweaking a few activities and um, also at the same time making some really great connections with your students. So it's one example of a way that you can structure your lessons, but this way I feel that this is a way to really optimize the input that you can give your students orally and also with a real focus on reading and literacy. So we start with the password or mindful writing, then a student voice activity, followed by write and discuss, a reading, and then an exit ticket or quiz. So by my calculations, that brings us up to about 27 minutes, which would allow a little bit of buffer between the activities and some very short, sharp brain breaks. So let's have a look at how that could look in your class. So the password or mindful writing is a 5-minute settling. I see it as a bit of a settling activity. The password makes the connection, the very first connection that you have with your students as they come in. So every lesson, there be at least one very brief connection with each of your students. So where they give the password, so you might say password wa nan desu ka, and they have to share that password that has been selected. So it might be password wa nan desu ka? Onegai shimasu could be the password. And hai, dozo. Password wa nan desu ka? And so we can really recycle lots of those important chunks of language. Another way that you can extend this is, and one of the teachers that is doing the action research project this term has been trialing this with great results. And she has set up a password, excuse me, and the password this week is nan desu ka. So password wa nan desu ka? Nan desu ka? Nan or nani. She's got that for one of her year levels. Another one is tsioi, and another one is furui. So the students say the password, they come in and they settle themselves with some mindful writing. And so the students then, for that amount of time, it allows the teacher also just to get settled herself and a little bit of buffer zone between classes. So the students come in and after giving their password, they practice writing that. And so it's a calming activity which can settle the class and also reinforce the key word for the password in written form. So after the password, and this is 30 minutes. So of course, if you had a longer lesson, you would extend this and maybe do a couple of different student voice activities. But the goal is really for meaningful connection and communication. So basically finding stuff out about your students, about their lives, about things that are important going on in their lives. So there are many, many different ways that you can do student voice activity. Here are just some of them, and some of these I have featured in the Express PD webinars, previous ones, so please look out for those. The one-word image was our very first webinar, and for good reason, because it's such an easy and absolutely fun, engaging activity for all year levels. So it's a really, really fun activity. If you're not sure what that is, please reach out or check out the webinar number 1. Special person interview was webinar 6, and that is also a really fantastic way to find out more about your class in a very comprehensible, using the high frequency verbs, and it provides a lot of exposure to those high frequency words, and also recycles them in a really natural way over the course of the year. Calendar talk was webinar 19, so please check that one out also. Picture talk, or as I've just recently heard it being referred to by Reed Riggs as real talk, is also another fabulous way to incorporate lots of meaningful conversation, and also to shine a light on some cultural topics. There are several sample picture talks, demos that I have given in the Japanese Reads community, so please check those out. And chatting about the weekend plans or recapping the weekend can be incorporated into calendar talk as well. So these are just a selection. So this or that, kore ka sore, this is an example of a student voice activity that provides lots of easy connections with your students. And it's a quick low prep game, which is always great. And so basically the students are given 2 options, and they need to choose which one. So you can ask them to point to the picture or to move into a different part of the classroom. So here are some that I prepared earlier. So nani ga suki? Pinku ka midori ga suki desu ka? Dochi ga suki desu ka? So you can get them to move into the spots, so the pink or green. You can then count up how many are in each camp, the pink camp or the green camp. Likewise with other colours, it's a great way to, in context, use and reuse colours. Inu ka neko ga suki desu ka? So again, which one? And then, easily, if they say both, ryohou ga suki desu ka? John-san wa inu ga suki desu. Demo, Sue-san wa nani ga suki desu ka? And so then you can ask the class, because they can see where Sue stands, so they're involved in the conversation. So it's really connecting in with the students, and not just teacher to student, but student to student, but done in a way, especially important for beginners, that it is scaffolded. So the answers can be just one word. They don't need to, they're not practicing. They are engaging in real life conversations. So it's very much in context. So some other examples here. Nani ga oishii? Nani ga oishii desu ka? Ramen ga ka? Cheese. So then naturally you can then, once the students choose their side, or maybe they're in the middle and they like both, you can then easily then do some personalized question and answers to individual students. Oh, Jackson,甘いものが好きですか？甘くないものも好きですか? So, running with a little bit, keeping in bounds with the language choice, but you can easily personalize the questions for the students to keep the engagement high. So here are some more examples. I won't go through all of them, but you can see some easy topics that can be brought up there. So, Vegemite wa amai desu ka? Amakunai desu ka? So you're recycling from the previous one. Or sushi ga suki desu ka? Sushi wa oishii desu ka? So that's an example of this or that game. Another option for your student voice section of time is calendar talk. And as I said before, you can refer to webinar 19, I think, 19. So calendar talk is a really great way to provide repetitive, contextualize input and to build a sense of classroom connection and community, while really naturally recycling the high frequency vocab and structures. So what it isn't is drilling the dates or the days of the week. That is a lesson that I have learned when I first found out about calendar talk. I really didn't have, I wasn't looking at calendar talk through the lens of CI. It was more, I can see now it was more drilling, whereas the calendar talk that I find is so rich now is really grounded in where the students' interests and their lives are at. So the calendar talk provides a real opportunity for us to build the connections with our students by talking about meaningful events and shared experiences, what's happening in their world. So, for example, if you're talking about you want to give them some exposure to, weather words, so tenki. So, 皆さん、今日は暑いです。暑いですね。皆さんは暑いのが好き？好きじゃない。And so then you can follow up then with that. So,ジョーさんは、寒いのが好き？暑いのが好きじゃないですか？なぜ？どうして？ So, or 今日は水曜日です。水曜日はいい日？悪い日？なぜ？ So, is it a good day? Is it a bad day? So, テストがありますか？だから水曜日は悪い。なるほど。So, or maybe it's a good day. Maybe it's パンケーキの日。パンケーキの日。だからいい日ですね。So there's some examples of calendar talk with a bit of a twist, a CI twist. So picture talk, I have done some demos on picture talk with different pictures. I recently listened to a great podcast episode with Dr. Diane Neubauer and Dr. Reed Riggs, and they were talking about picture talk and how it really does serve as a rich source of comprehensible input, and it really does help to facilitate language acquisition through a visual context. So, by discussing the students, by discussing the images, the students can then connect with what we're talking about, and this really does boost engagement and motivation and interest. So a key takeaway for me listening to that podcast was Diane reminds us that the goal isn't to quiz the picture, but to provide rich, engaging input that builds connection, culture, and curiosity. So with that in mind, you can see here, this is a picture, a real talk picture, because it's of, something real. It's me and my family and my dog, and this is my daughter's 21st birthday celebration. We're at home. So using the Super 7, when I think about how to approach picture talk, I always remind myself, okay, how can I use the language that is going to be the highest frequency? So how can I say what I want to say using, for example, only from the Super 7 verbs? So the Super 7 verbs are listed there. So as much as possible, especially for beginners, I really try to think about how I can express my thoughts drill down to the basics here so that I can keep it fully comprehensible. I don't want any of my students thinking, I don't know what she's saying. I want them to be included in the discussion, included in the conversation. They don't need to say anything to be included, but they do need to understand what's being said. So using just the Super 7 verbs, you can see we can say, 皆さんはどこにいますか？誰ですか？ペットは何ですか？何をしていますか？いつですか？名前は何ですか? So there is so much that you can tease out of if you're happy to share a snapshot of your life. The other great thing is with the student voice section of time that I have also done. This is one sharing about my life, but students can then also be encouraged to share their own pictures that they're happy to share and discuss in class. And that can be really, really powerful. So picture talk can also target cultural voices. So we've got student voice, but also cultural voices. And I thought that I'd give an explanation to how you could focus on the Super 7 verbs and really trying to expose the class with as much input that's really, really comprehensible about this picture. So keeping it engaging, but keeping it comprehensible, and that's the fine line. So, for example, 何ですか? シャワーですか? いいえ、シャワーじゃないです。何ですか? トイレ。はい、トイレですね。トイレは素晴らしい。 トイレですか? Uh, どこですか? And then you can ask them to guess. どこですか? オーストラリアにありますか? 日本にあります。先生のトイレットだと思いますか? Do you think it's sensei's toilet? いいえ。先生のトイレットは素晴らしくないです。特別じゃないです。And then you can connect in with your students. Sally さんのうちに特別なトイレがありますか? So while discussing the picture, you can also make those connections with the culture, with Japan and Australia, or Japan and other countries. So following on from the student voice oral input stage is a 5-minute write and discuss. And a write and discuss, for those that are not familiar with it, you are basically discussing. So if we were talking about the toilets, for example, and that was our student voice, we were chatting about that. That was our oral input stage. The write and discuss then is recapping that in very comprehensible input and co-writing it with the class. So the teacher is directing what is being written, and you don't have to write, and please don't write everything that was discussed. It really is just, I think the best way to look at the write and discuss is to have it as a short, regular activity. So, and just to summarize what the key points are. But the goal is, as I said, not to write everything that was talked about, but to write it together so that in a very natural way, the students are seeing the construction of these sentences. So, for example, you might say, so we're starting with a clean board. 何が and I might start by writing this. 何が古いですか? Okay, so they know the ka makes it the question. 何? And then I might wait for them to say, for someone to call out, because they know 何が. 何が古く, and then they can finish off the sentences, because we've had lots of previous exposure talking about things that are furui, furukunai. So you're listening for the part where the students are joining in. So you're leading the writing, but ready to pull back and allow the students to jump in where they can. Furukunai desu ka, and then I might just pop up a real quick pop-up grammar. What's the cut do? Yeah, it makes it a question. So what does that mean? What is not old? Yeah. はい。じゃあ、何が古くないですか? 何が古いですか? 何が古いですか? 皆さん。はい。Blackboard wa. So as we're saying it together, I am writing it on the board. Blackboard wa furui desu, and writing as I go. 皆さん、whiteboard wa furui desu ka? I might just say that to the students, no writing, and they would say, いいえ. Whiteboard wa furu kunai desu ne. はい。でも、whiteboard wa furu kunai desu. And then continue on with the next one. Francis sensei, furukunai. And then you could have a little joke about, is Francis sensei old or young? And then you might, as we're writing that one, introduce the yo and explain that that's for emphasis. Francis sensei is not old. So after the write and discuss, I would then do a follow-up reading and would do this for, about 7 minutes or so. So there's lots of different ways that, different examples of reading activities that you could do. There could be, just hold on for a moment. So there's lots of different ways that you can provide input with a reading that is highly comprehensible. And those could be a shared reading where you are reading a story, kindergarten style, I suppose. It could be you're showing the book as you're reading comprehensively. Another change for me when I moved into more CI acquisition focused teaching was understanding that even though Japanese books that are written for Japanese children are at a level where the children understand because they've had so much oral input leading up to, even as a 5-year-old, they've heard so much before. So those books can still be enjoyed in class, but they need to be, the teacher's job then is to CI-fy, I suppose. So to change that, so to tell the story, but to tell it in a comprehensible way. So shared reading, volleyball reading, there's many, but anyway, I'm going to focus in on tonight one called Mind Reader. So Mind Reader is a reading-based input activity, and so the students read 5 or 6 numbered sentences and guess which one they think the teacher is thinking of. So So Mind Reader it's a great reading input. So Mind Reader is a really great reading activity. It provides lots of input in a gamified way. So basically the class are shown maybe 5 or 6 numbered sentences, and these are sentences that you could read through those beforehand. They could be a selection from the write and discuss, so you could just recycle that. And the class is told that sensei is thinking of one of those sentences and they have to mind read, they have to try and work out what it is which one is sensei thinking about. So I would write it on a whiteboard and keep it close to my chest. And then the students are guessing. And so it might be for super beginners, it might be just they are saying the number. So ichi, ni, san, shi. Ichi desu ka? Ni desu ka? San desu ka? And that then provides an opportunity for the teacher to then say, ichiban dato omoimasu ka? Ichiban wa nan desu ka? And then maybe get the whole class to read it together. Hai, dozo. Blackboard wa furui です。一番ですか ?Blackboard は古いです。いいえ、いいえ、一番じゃないです。And somebody else can then choose one. はい。古いクロコダイルです。はい。5番です。5番は、じゃあ皆さん一緒に古い crocodile です。Now you'll notice too that I've got some keywords, some proper nouns there in English. You could also put them in Romaji. And the reason for this is, I have spoken about this before, is that the focus for me for beginners is on the structures. So using the Super 7 or the key vocab that we are looking at. So in this case, this was furui. So that was our key word. We were using des, janai, ka, nani. So these are the core foundation that I really want the students to know and to know well and to be able to understand and use independently without rote memorization. I don't want them to be held back or fumble over a katakana word blackboard that they may not need, or crocodile. If we had more time and follow-up activities, yep, fine, no problem. But for if my priority is regular reading and for that to become the norm in the class, I want to provide enough support to allow all the students to have success with reading. So, so there are my thoughts on that. And the final little part to this sequence, this 30-minute sequence, is a 3-minute exit ticket. So it could be a couple of questions on a piece of paper that you collect as they leave. It could be, as we are doing with the Action Research Project, we've got Plickers, which is a program that you can use, which will tally up the students' answers really quickly and easily, and then give you a report spreadsheet on it, so you can then identify which who's having difficulty with which structures. But another way to, and this is probably my favorite way, it's a way that you can gamify the exit ticket and also provide more oral input for the students. So it gives you a snapshot of how the class is going with the key structures that you've been using, but it's done in a really, really fun way. So basically, pencil grab or totte is a listening game where the students grab a pencil if they hear a true sentence. They're in pairs. There's a pencil in the middle. They listen for the teacher's statement. So I might say, blackboard wa furui desu. Now, that's true. So the students then could race to grab it. And then I would ask, nan desu ka? And ask a student to tell me that in English, give a translation in English, or to repeat it in Japanese. If it was incorrect, so if it was blackboard wa furukunai desu. So if it's incorrect, they don't grab it. And if they do grab it, their partner, the other person, their opponent, gets a point. So it's really, really a fun way to review and also to give the teacher a bit of a quick snapshot idea of their comprehension through really active listening. So that's it for the 30-minute Express PD and your 30-minute high input 30-minute lesson. I hope that's given some ideas of ways that you could incorporate some of these strategies into your classes. If you've got any questions at all, please reach out at any of these options here. So please reach out, and you can find me on any of these social media platforms, and I would love to hear from you. So, じゃあ皆さん頑張りましょう。